US spending by $54 billion a year. One way he'll pay for it is to 28% cut to the State Department budget. And bear in mind at the moment that the US national debt stands at just under $20 trillion. Well, James Klempster is Head of Investment Management at Momentum Asset Management. Now, often in situations like this, a new president, there's what's called a skinny budget. But this budget does look extremely thin indeed from the detail we have so far, doesn't it?
Well, skinny, there's not much meat on the bones at all. What we do know so far is it looks very much about the policies of paranoia, if anything. You see a lot of emphasis on defence spending, a lot of emphasis on homeland security, and anything else which looks vaguely sort of luxurious in those sort of parameters look like they're facing cuts, essentially.
So $20 trillion is the current US national debt. And during the Obama administration, there was a lot of wrangling with Congress about the debt ceiling. And we heard the so-called fiscal cliff being talked about a lot. Do you think we're going to see the return of the fiscal cliff? There's
a reasonable chance. I mean, if taking a step back, the things we know about what Trump's likely to do is he's looking to increase spending where he can, but also cut taxation. So those two things don't marry very well unless you have pressures fiscally elsewhere. There could well be a move to the fiscal cliff. And a lot of the political intransigence we saw around that really was because the Senate and the lower house weren't run by the same party, essentially. There was a split there, but arguably there still is. I mean, if you look at Trump's relationship with the Senate in his own party, it's fractious at best. The Tea Party, the elements, for example, you know, are likely to make his life difficult. So I think we may well see issues that are similar to what we saw a couple of years ago. A lot of worrying around will they, won't they, last-minute deals, a bit of horse trading, and eventually these things do get through.
A lot of the cuts are expected to be made at the State Department, and US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson has said today that actually the current spending levels were simply not sustainable, and it looks likely that it's going to be climate change budget programs such as that, and also UN budgets that are likely to be cut, doesn't it?
Yes, and that's what I referred to in the sense of being luxurious, and they're not in many senses, but I think there are things that you can defer far more simply than you can with respect to defence. If you genuinely believe that there's a need to increase defence spending, a lot of other areas that look vaguely luxurious can be cut back on, and you know, the impact is perhaps modest in the short term, but in terms of where that leads you in terms of, you know, geopolitical relationships, you know, the long-term ramifications could be quite significant, actually. I mean, we've already seen Trump is representing a bit of a reset in terms of international relations, certainly with respect to a number of different large economies globally, the likes of Russia and China, and this is another step, perhaps, into a world of greater political uncertainty.
OK, James Klempster from Momentum Asset Management, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.